Hello, hello, hello. I'm Vicky Igbokwe-Ozoagu, your lighter leadership coach, and welcome to the Lighter Leadership Podcast, where we explore leadership that doesn't cost you yourself. A client came into a session recently in tears. She's a few months into motherhood and carrying that very specific kind of exhaustion that is emotional, physical, mental, and identity shifting all at once. And underneath the tears was a core question. Have I made a mistake? Which then led to a series of more questions like, can I actually do this? Have I completely lost myself? What if I'm not good at this? What if this never gets easier? And as we slowed the conversation down, I reminded her of something. I said to her, remember, you're a few months into motherhood. And I physically watched something shift in her. Because up until that point, she had unconsciously been comparing herself to people who had been decades into parenting. People who already had a rhythm, perspective, more experience, and distance from the intensity of the beginning of this motherhood journey. And suddenly, she came back into reality. A few months in is super early. I actually remember the moment where she was like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's not even been 6 months. And then I could see the cogs turning and more realizations came in. It's a few months. It's really early. It's a few months of learning, of experimenting, of adjusting, of practicing, of trying again and figuring out her way of doing motherhood, her way of doing parenthood, her way of parenting with her husband. And honestly, I think you as a leader do this to yourself all of the time. If we just think about decision making, right? You make a decision, and then very quickly afterwards, you start doubting yourself because the outcome feels harder or messier or more uncomfortable than you imagined or anticipated, right? So you maybe take a new role, or you start a business, you become a parent, you lead the restructure, you say yes, you say no, you move city, you end the relationship, you change direction, and then reality arrives. Not fantasy, not the fairy tale that you told yourself, reality. The complexity, the uncertainty, the emotional weight, the learning curve. But the thing is, instead of seeing that as part of the experience, as part of your experience, you immediately turn it into a story about yourself. And the story goes something like this: I've made the wrong decision. I'm failing. I'm bad at this, really bad at this. I've ruined everything. And this is where one of the practices of lighter leadership becomes really important. Fiction versus fact. Because fiction sounds like, I'm a terrible mother, I'm failing as a leader, this decision was a mistake. Whereas fact sounds more like, I'm a few months into a completely life-changing experience. Or I'm in a difficult season, or wow, I'm learning in real time, or this decision is more complex than I expected. And that is a very different conversation. And I think sometimes what you need most is not judgment, right? Not judging yourself. It's not about shame or even the pressure you put on yourself to immediately bounce back. Sometimes what you need is to give yourself context, more perspective, more grace. And absolutely, hear me when I say this. I don't want you to stay stuck in the pit of self blame and catastrophic thinking, like chaotic, just oh my gosh, thinking, right? I don't want you to stay stuck in the pit of this. Instead, I want you to acknowledge this is hard. Yeah, this didn't go the way I imagined. I'm disappointed. I'm overwhelmed. Like, you're a human, right? So, absolutely, there's a fact in there, there's a truth in there of acknowledging these things. So, you can say it's hard. It didn't go the way you imagined. You're disappointed. You're overwhelmed. That's great. But the follow up, which you don't always have and don't always do, is this because I then want you to ask yourself, okay, what is true now? What am I learning here? What do I want to try differently moving forward? Because difficult moments are not proof that you have failed. Sometimes they are simply proof that you are inside something real, something that's moving, something that's alive, something that's morphing, something that's constantly shifting. So if you take anything from this episode, let it be this. Do not build a permanent identity from a temporary moment. Okay? Do not build a permanent identity from a temporary moment. And please, please, please don't sit in the pit. So, where in your life have you mistaken discomfort or uncertainty as proof you've made the wrong decision? Take some time this week to just have a think about that. And if you're looking for space to think, to breathe, reflect, or reconnect to yourself within your leadership, take a look at the show notes for the next lighter leadership reset. It's 30 minutes of protected thinking space purely for you. And remember, your leadership doesn't need to cost you yourself. Lots of love.